A major Chinese river's water level is hitting a historic high, but several restaurants were located inside its embankment and they were still open. The U.S. consulate in Chengdu was closed, putting an end to its 35-year presence in the city. It received a mixed response from Chinese people. In Hong Kong, Xinjiang, and northeastern provinces, CCP-virus cases are surging. The head of China's CDC went to a northeastern city. He made a similar trip months ago, but to Wuhan, the epicenter of the pandemic. India has banned nearly 50 more Chinese-made smartphone apps, while an Indian court has summoned Alibaba's founder Jack Ma. The case relates to censorship and a former employee. And the European Union is set to limit tech exports to Hong Kong. It covers equipment that could be used for repression or surveillance under the new law. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. The U.S. consulate in Chengdu, China officially closed today after Beijing ordered its shutdown in retaliation for Washington closing the Chinese consulate in Houston.
China's foreign ministry announced as of 10 a.m. Monday morning the U.S. consulate in the Chinese city of Chengdu has closed. China had given the closure orders on Friday, with just 72 hours to vacate. The Chengdu consulate opened in 1985 and has nearly 200 employees according to its website. The weekend saw a flurry of removal vans come and go as staff removed belongings. And on Saturday evening, a worker could be seen removing a plaque outside the main entrance. Security was tight, but a steady stream of people walked along the street opposite the entrance, many stopping to take photos or videos before police moved them on. Residents in Chengdu expressed mixed views on the US consulate there, with one saying that he thought it was a reciprocal action, whilst another felt uneasy about the incident.
The American flag in front of the U.S. consulate in Chengdu was taken down Monday morning local time. This put an end to a 35-year official presence of the United States in the city. The U.S. mission and China's Twitter account stated, "Today we embark on a new job with pride in the work we have done and the friendship left in our memory by the people of Southwest China." Despite the closure, Chinese police still restricted access to the area around the consulate. Some locals snapped photos of the scene. Local resident Mr. Lee said the severing of relations between China and the U.S. makes him feel sad. That's because far below the national level, relations between the countries also impact ordinary Chinese citizens.
Because we need to go and travel in the U.S., and some of our relatives need to go and study in the U.S., these things will all be greatly affected. That includes the economy between the two countries, which will gradually deteriorate and even break apart. That's why we are paying a lot of attention to it. This sort of relations severing between China and the U.S. actually makes us feel really sad.
Elsewhere, a person held up a pro-CCP banner reading "Long live the People's Republic of China, long live the Chinese people, and long live Xi Jinping." He was taken away by police soon after. Now to the Chinese consulate in the U.S. U.S. Senator Ted Cruz said Sunday that more Chinese diplomatic missions could be closed in the U.S. Last week, the Chinese consulate in Houston, Texas was closed. U.S. authorities accused it of engaging in espionage and intellectual property theft. Now to China's reaction to the U.S. decisions. Posters have been put up in Beijing teaching people how to get into underground air defense facilities after alarms go off. In the 1960s, lots of civil air defense networks were built in large cities. It was done at a time when the CCP was preparing for war with the Soviet Union and the U.S. Now we look at an odd request made by China's propaganda department. China's State Administration for Radio, Film and Television, a branch of the Communist Party's propaganda department, issued an order earlier this month. It requested that television stations across the country broadcast dramas about Chinese-Japanese War in the 1940s and the Korean War in the 1950s. It's an effort to praise the so-called greatness of the regime's army. The Korean conflict was a war between North and South Korea, which was prompted by a North Korean invasion of South Korea. China and the Soviet Union supported North Korea, while the United Nations, especially the United States, backed South Korea. In the end, North Korea proved unable to conquer South Korea, and the war ended with armistice. But in China, another version of that history is publicized. For decades, the Chinese Communist Party has been spreading the narrative that South Korea invaded North Korea instead. It also says that in order to protect China, the party fought together with North Korea and defeated the U.S. And in another unusual move, a notice was issued last week by a neighborhood management organization in the northwestern city of Chongqing. That notice, that's now circulating online, says that family members of active border and coastal defense troops are invited to register with neighborhood management. It extends the offer in particular to the family members of soldiers and officers in Xinjiang, Tibet, Yunnan, Guangxi, and Hainan. Xinjiang and Tibet are home to the Uyghurs and Tibetans respectively. There, more protests against the CCP have occurred than in other regions. Yunnan, Guangxi, and Hainan share borders with countries that are pushing back against China's aggression in the South China Sea. Chinese political commentators Tun Bing told Radio Free Asia that there have also been similar notices in other cities. Retired soldiers and officers have also been reportedly told to register with the authorities. Bing said that means these people could be made to join the army at any time. He added that the CCP is working to create a tense atmosphere in order to control people. If someone protests, authorities can then accuse him of supporting the U.S. While flooding is still plaguing China's longest river, a new round of flooding is emerging upstream, the biggest yet this year. Downstream, a major river's water levee has climbed above its warning level, but several restaurants are found inside its embankment, and they are still open. NTD's Juliet Song has more.
In southern China, a major river's water level has hit a historic high, but several luxury restaurants were found inside the river embankment, even though they weren't supposed to be there. On top of that, they were still open while authorities raised the flood alert to its highest level. The restaurants have been there for 6 years. Even though it's not legally approved, the company that built the embankment opened up space inside and rented units out to business owners. As a result, authorities tore down the restaurants overnight. While massive flooding is still plaguing regions surrounding the Yangtze River, the country's longest river, a new wave of floodwater has emerged upstream, and it's the biggest yet this year. Regions upstream are already suffering. In parts of Sichuan province, torrential rain is triggering landslides. Roads have been damaged, signals are cut off, and the power went out for some areas. A video circulating online shows a man braving the flood while trying to save his cattle. Moments later, the strong current washed away a young calf as an older animal appeared to chase after it. In the end, all of them were washed away and the man came back empty-handed. Moving further downstream to a city hit particularly hard by the flooding. Videos posted online show massive floodwater as it washed away multiple cars. And a narrow escape. A person trapped inside a flooded building was seen reaching out his hands for help. That's as the water had nearly filled the first floor. Before long, the entire first floor was submerged, but the voice in the video said the person managed to escape. A large part of the city's downtown area is already underwater. Further downstream, floodwaters are almost as high as the tops of school buildings. Besides the waves of flooding, other natural disasters are also striking the country. Areas upstream from the Three Gorges Dam recently reported a magnitude 3.4 earthquake. The destruction has sparked concerns about the safety of the famous dam. One expert, well known for his research on the dam, said previously that it can only withstand earthquakes below magnitude 6. The upstream region has already seen several earthquakes this month, the biggest of which was magnitude 4. Juliet Song, NTD News.
According to Chinese state-run media, the CCP-virus epidemic that re-emerged in the northeastern Chinese city of Dalian last week has expanded to 8 cities in 4 provinces. Ma Xiaowei, director of the National Health Commission, led a team to Dalian on Monday. He also went to Wuhan in February, the epicenter of the outbreak. In Dalian, about 100 passenger lines of trains have been suspended so far. People in Dalian have to get a negative test report before boarding a bus or train. Some videos show passengers waiting in a long line to take a virus test. In some areas, there are many people waiting, and little attention is given to social distancing. At the same time, the situation in Xinjiang and Hong Kong is worsening too. Xinjiang's capital, Urumqi, was put under lockdown last week, and the number of confirmed cases continues to rise. A makeshift hospital has also been built. According to posts by netizens, Yining City in Xinjiang has been locked down. A video shows people stocking up on food and necessities, but the authorities did not issue any notice. Yining City is located in the northwest of Xinjiang Autonomous Region. It is the headquarters of some of the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps and for the Armed Police Force. Now we turn to Hong Kong, to the epidemic there. The number of confirmed cases of the CCP-virus in Hong Kong has risen sharply, exceeding 100 in a single day for 6 consecutive days. The death toll there has doubled in the same time. Experts worry if the number of confirmed cases continues to exceed 100 in the next few days, the isolation wards of public hospitals will be full in less than a week. An Indian court has asked Chinese tech giant Alibaba and its co-founder Jack Ma to present evidence about its news operations. A former employee claimed he was unfairly dismissed for refusing to censor content carried by Alibaba apps.
An Indian court has summoned Alibaba and its founder Jack Ma in a case in which a former employee in India says he was wrongfully fired after objecting to what he saw as censorship and fake news on company apps. The case comes just weeks after India cited security concerns in banning Alibaba's UC News, UC Browser and 57 other Chinese apps after a clash between the two countries' forces on their shared border. Following the ban, which was criticised by China, India sought written answers from all affected companies, including whether they censored content or acted for any foreign government. In court filings dated July 20 and previously not reported, the former employee of Alibaba's UC Web, Pushpendra Singh Palmer, alleges the company used to censor content seen as unfavourable to China, and its apps UC Browser and UC News showcased false news to, quote, cause social and political turmoil. A civil judge from a district court in Gurugram has issued summons for Alibaba, Jack Ma and about a dozen individuals or company units, asking them to appear in court or through a lawyer on July 29. According to the summons, the judge has also sought written responses from the company and its executives within 30 days. The court case is the latest hurdle for Alibaba in India after the Indian government's app ban, following which UC Web has started laying off some staff in the country. Alibaba representatives did not respond to requests for comment from the company or on behalf of Jack Ma.
Now to India. According to several local media outlets, India has banned nearly 50 more Chinese-made smartphone apps. Most of them are clones and variants of the close to 60 apps banned last month. The newly banned apps include TikTok Lite, a lesser version of the popular video-sharing app TikTok, as well as Hilo Lite, Share It, Lite, and others. TikTok, Hilo, and Share It were among the apps initially banned in the first group. The ban now also included popular Chinese messaging app WeChat and social media platform Weibo. Residents in several states, such as Utah and Washington, mysteriously received a delivery of seeds from China, and yet they hadn't actually ordered them. Officials are now urging people to report any unsolicited seeds because they might be harmful to American agriculture.
U.S. residents reported receiving packets of seeds in the mail that they didn't order. Based on photos, the seeds appear to have been mailed in white pouches displaying Chinese lettering and the words China Post. Many agricultural officials are urging residents not to plant the seeds because the impact of them is unknown. They could be invasive, introduce diseases to local plants, or be harmful to livestock. Some of the packages were labeled to say they contained jewelry. Officials are asking for people to report all unsolicited seeds coming from China. A leading professor of plant pathology and environmental microbiology said the seeds may harbor plant pathogens or insects, which could affect similar crops grown in the U.S. for income and food or as food for animals. Seed introduction is tightly regulated. The Agricultural Department's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service has strict rules for the importation of plants and seeds. Utah's Department of Agriculture and Food will likely team up with Customs and Border Protection to investigate. The Chinese embassy in Washington did not respond to a request for comment.
Now we turn to the UK. Senior lawmakers are questioning a Chinese state firm's involvement in the construction of a UK nuclear plant.
A deal was signed off in 2016 between the UK government and a French developer EDF to build a plant in southwest England. China General Nuclear, or CGN, took a nearly 40% stake, vowing to be a financial backer only. CGN is a state-owned company. However, the Sunday Telegraph reports CGN has more than 100 engineers and technical experts working on Hinkley. A former Conservative leader said it was obviously never just going to be a financial partnership. Nick Timothy, who tried unsuccessfully as Mrs. May's top advisor to block the Chinese deal, said, "If it is true that China has a significant operational role at Hinkley, then there are many questions that need to be answered."
Following weeks of pressure, Germany for the first time threatened Beijing with consequences for cracking down on Hong Kong's freedoms. A German lawmaker of the ruling party explains why Germany's more cautious approach toward the CCP. NTD's Germany correspondent Christian Watson has more.
The German parliament behind me is currently on summer break. Many are wondering how to understand Germany's relatively muted response after Beijing imposed this controversial national security law on Hong Kong.
But now signs that Germany is speaking more loudly. German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas for the first time threatened China directly with concrete consequences for undermining the one country, two systems principle in Hong Kong. He has mentioned an end to Germany's extradition treaty with Hong Kong, an easier entry into Germany for Hong Kongers, and a weapons export ban to the city. Criticizing Beijing has always been a balancing act for Berlin.
We are not enemies of China, and we make that very clear, but we find China's political behavior unacceptable.
The foreign minister's announcements follow increasing pressure from within the German government, the public, and even some business groups to take a tougher stance toward the CCP. For German Chancellor Angela Merkel, three things have been a priority for most of her 15-year reign and 12 trips to China: trade, dialogue, and not upsetting Beijing.
We have to keep talking. We must not allow the thread of conversation to break off and provoke an escalation of the relationship, which then leaves us voiceless. When Beijing comes to an arrangement, it is always because they associate certain interests with us.
So far, the engagement has borne fruits for Germany, at least in the economic arena. Since Merkel took office, German exports to China increased by 5 times to just under $110 billion, or about 3% of the GDP. For the German government, the motto has been change through trade. In her third year in office, Merkel met the Dalai Lama, but following anger from Beijing, she has gradually treaded more cautiously on human rights issues. At the beginning of Germany's 6-month presidency of the EU on July 1st, she stressed the value of fundamental rights. In the same speech at the European Parliament, she didn't mention Hong Kong a single time. Instead, she emphasized the need for open dialogue with China.
We have gained nothing if we secure material prosperity in cooperation with China or other countries but lose our identity. Then we would really be the losers.
Observers say Germany hardening its stance would significantly influence the EU's policy toward the CCP. Reporting by Christian Watchen, NTD News, Berlin.
The European Union is set to limit tech exports to Hong Kong. It covers equipment that could be used for law enforcement in repression or surveillance. That's according to a draft document seen by Reuters. It's the first substantial action by the EU in response to the national security law Beijing imposed on the financial hub. The 27 EU member states expressed grave concern when Beijing implemented the law. On Friday, the EU agreed to a variety of sweeping sanctions, from trade restrictions to reviewing visa agreements with Hong Kong. The goal is to show political support for Hong Kong's autonomy. The EU's response thus far has been seen as milder than that of the UK or the US. Some point to China being the EU's second largest trading partner. The document is expected to enter into effect on Tuesday. In Eastern Europe, Estonia and other countries are starting to speak out against the Chinese Communist Party. In a joint statement, the chairs of the Foreign Affairs Committees condemned Beijing's passing of the draconian security law in Hong Kong. The chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Estonian Parliament said Beijing's recent move is in direct violation of the 1984 Sino-British Joint Declaration. He added China's recent step, however, disregarded the agreement, and my colleagues from other parliaments and I can in no way agree to such a breach. Quite the contrary, we condemn it. The lawmakers strongly urge Beijing to reconsider its decision to impose the law. In addition to Estonia, Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Latvia, Norway, Germany, Denmark, the UK, and the European Parliament all signed the letter as well. One Chinese hotel owner reports suffering unfair treatment at the hands of the Chinese regime. In our exclusive three-part interview, she exposes the problems with China's regime and legal systems for private businesses. In part 3, Ms. Wang discusses why entrepreneurs feel like second-class citizens in China.
Wang Ruiqin did business in China for decades, but she says China's private entrepreneurs are allowed little contribution to policymaking. They also lack legal protections and suffer from low social status. Wang explained that unlike state-owned and foreign firms in China, private companies are targets of extortion by regime officials, and business owners spend a huge amount of their time and resources dealing with them. In addition, China's media generally doesn't give positive coverage to private companies. Business owners are often accused of bribery and tax evasion.
Bribery is forced. The media keeps saying this or that businessman is colluding with the regime. But in fact, no businessmen want to collude with officials. They just have no other options.
Wang had previously managed to become a member of the provincial committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. That's the country's top political advisory body. She said it was for security reasons. In China, anyone can be disappeared for political claims, but as a member of the committee, Beijing has to disqualify a person's title first before authorizing their arrest. That could give her a bit more time if she was in danger.
Private companies are always in danger. Things can happen at any time. Business owners could be arrested, disappear, forced to go bankrupt, or face something else. There is no safety. One of the biggest benefits of this political title is that there is such a process that I can win a little bit of time to do something, to be prepared.
Wang says the ruling Communist Party in China fundamentally perceives private enterprises as a threat to its power. That's because the party doesn't have direct control over them.
Last year, Xi Jinping said private business owners are China's own people, which shows the fact that they weren't before. Until last year, he never said it, because basically they dislike private companies. But the state-owned enterprises are corrupt, incompetent, and inefficient. So the country has no other choice but to open the doors for private businesses. I believe the nature of the communist state doesn't welcome or trust private enterprises.
Wang explained that insecurity is common among China's private entrepreneurs, as private companies lack legal protections. She says it makes entrepreneurs vulnerable to property theft and threats to personal safety. The average lifespan of a private business is 52 years in Japan, 24 years in the US, but only 3 years in China. Wang says the reason lies inside China's system.
Private companies have to pay more for bribery and various fees, and put in more effort in order to grow. Otherwise, they slowly disappear. So that's why Chinese businesses don't live very long. There are many reasons, and the main reason is the communist system.
She added that only a major change to the system could solve the problem long term.
If China does not democratize, there will be no future for private enterprises. They will always be lambs to slaughter, facing shutdown and extortion at any time, one after another.
Reporting by Li Xiaohua, NTD News.
And that's all for today's China in Focus. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow.